When you turn yourself in, this is something that we know that you were in jail for a long time, but I don't think I've ever heard you discuss like what happened in that experience. You turn yourself in. When do you get to go home after turning yourself in before you're back in jail?
I turned myself in. I am sitting in the lobby with my mom, and then several hours, Kenosha police detectives come in. They Mirandize me. I take 5, and then I am arrested, charged. I don't know what I was charged with yet. They just said I was being arrested and charged, and then I asked, what are the charges? And they say, well, we don't know yet. And then I was taken to Deputy Juvenile Detention Center, where I went on to fight extradition, ultimately losing. Not going to get into much about that. Then I was transferred to Kenosha County Detention Center, the pretrial facility where I was held until I have raised enough money to post bail, which was $2 million. And then I was released on November 20th of 2020.
So you released on November 20th. What date did you turn yourself in on again?
August 20th.
August?
The night of August 20th.
So you're in August to September, 3 months in
87 days.
87 days. What's the first facility? What was that called again? A detention center?
Deputy Juvenile Detention Center.
Can you tell anybody who's never been what that experience is possibly like?
The food's a lot better there than Kenosha County Jail. It's interesting. There are a lot of kids there for a lot of bad things, and it's at the juvenile detention center. It was very controlled with what it seemed like. They had a very controlled environment. Hands like out of pockets, walking down the hallways. Your hands had to be behind your back. You weren't allowed to touch anybody. You can play cards. You can read books. You can watch TV. When you weren't doing school. Like, I think it was 5-6 hours of mandatory school each day where we'd go into the classroom and learn.
Let me ask a stupid question. How was the 5 to 6 hours of school? How was the teaching?
It was online.
Okay.
It was all online through programs. It was very, very interesting.
So, I mean, it's surreal, and I think my nightmare is being detained in, like, I not say like an animal in a bad way, just like, to be in a cage. You're 5 to 6 hours online learning. Is that in a cell or is that in a classroom?
It's in a classroom setting, but then we do have cells. We go to cells at nighttime, or if something happens, or if they just feel like putting us up. And then at Kenosha County Jail, I was held in a cell 24/7.
This is all day, every day.
I maybe left the cell every other day for an hour to visit my lawyers.
Can I ask first? Let's get some visuals here. You're in a cell. How big is the cell? Can you touch both sides of the walls with your arms?
No, it's not that big. They put me in a medical unit cell, so it had like a shower which didn't work, and a sink and a toilet, and then a desk, and then a metal bed with a 4-inch thick mattress on it.
Why was it 24/7? Is this for your security?
I was in protective custody.
Okay.
A lot of people wanted to cause me harm in jail. I don't know if you know who jailhouse lawyers are, but they have me greenlit, so they were worried about that. And
I don't know who jailhouse. I think I know roughly what was going on, but what's jailhouse lawyers and what does greenlit mean?
Well, jailhouse lawyers is like some organization, but greenlit means they want to have you killed.
Okay.
There was a tweet circulating from them saying, if anybody has a location on Kyle Rittenhouse's cell, let us know.
I'm going to ask the obvious question, but I'm going to ask it nonetheless. What do you appreciate what that means in real time, or do you not really even understand the severity of that threat?
I understand that as a pretty big threat. That is somebody saying, hey, let's figure out his cell, because once we get lock on it, we're going to have people go in and take care of him. By take care, I mean kill me.
How do you internalize that as you're there?
I was just like, well, it's out of my control. I have to trust that the prison guards are going to protect me, and that whatever happens is God's plan.
Let me ask you this also. Prison guards, do you get the impression they are adversarial, or are they conceptually supportive?
Most of them were pretty supportive, what it seemed. There's one person who I don't think really liked me. He put me in every time he put me in handcuffs. He like cranked him down and like dragged me a little bit. But
This was actually a question it's a good. I mean, it's a segue. It's you talk about a faith. You talked about a faith in God with Rakeda. I know you talk about it, and is your faith newfound, or were you brought up religious with the faith in some protective power?
I've always been a Christian, but my Christianity has definitely strengthened through the situation. Learning to fall on God in the hardest times and just learning to trust Him.
When you're in jail, are you
Yes.
reading the Bible?
Yes.
Okay, I have been meaning, like, I want to read the Bible. I'm not a religious person. I think I might be spiritual, but the lessons from the Bible are timeless, and I think they can help people contextualize things. Did you start from page 1 and go to the end?
I did. I read it in pieces. I did my best. The Bible is a big book, and it is a lot to digest, especially on your own. And I'm still trying to learn to digest it all. And I have people I'm working with to try to learn everything the Bible is trying to teach us and apply it in everyday life.
I was actually just listening to Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan most recently on the way down here, and I think he said the Bible's not a book; it's a library, and a compilation of books. And he was explaining the story of Exodus and how it applies in today's day and age as well. Okay, so you're in jail 24/7 in protective in a protective cell alone. So no jailmate or cellmate. You get out every other day do you get sunlight? Do you get exercise? Do you get to shower? Like, life, what's it like when you're doing that?
When I was in Kenosha County Jail, I didn't shower at all. I didn't see sunlight at all while I was at Kenosha County Jail. At Depke, I had a small window, like maybe 2 foot by 3, and it had 2 small slits, like 2 inches wide. You can barely see outside, and the window was a little bit scratched off, but you can make out what was outside. And I would like watch like the wind, and I'd be like, wow, I want to go outside, because you take for granted on little things like going for a walk or going to sit outside, like fresh air. You take for granted the fresh air you breathe.
Let me ask you this. Would you have preferred to have the window or no window, because of the temptation to see what's out there is more frustrating than not seeing it?
Well, I liked having the window because you would get really bored in the cell, and then that just gave you something to do, just like watch outside.
So you're in there for 3 months. Was it always protective? Like, were you always basically 24/7 until you got out?
I always was in protective custody the entire time, from the incident to I was bailed out. They had somebody constantly with me. At Depke, they had 2 people with me no matter what. And there was always somebody.
I'm going to ask my own neurotic questions. Were you sleeping? Were you coping with this, or is this 3 months of absolute psychological trauma?
It was absolute psychological trauma, especially going back to Kenosha, and then a lot of sleepless nights at Depke.
What's Depke?
Depke Juvenile Detention Center. Yeah. And I didn't sleep for like the first 2.5 weeks. Like, I was restless and exhausted and traumatized and scared. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what people were saying. I didn't know what was going on the outside. It was scary. I was a 17-year-old kid not knowing what the rest of my life was going to look like. And that was hard to grasp.
3 months, you get when you're in the 24/7. What are you getting? There's no schooling there. There's no nothing. No internet. No connection to the outside
I had
world.
a tablet
With connection to the internet. Decent connection, or you're able to at least know something of the existence of the outside world.
So I had a jail tablet. So it had like, you can watch like certain types of movies. Like, I think there's like 45 movies you can choose from, like 20 TV shows. But it was like a season of like The Office or something, and like scattered. It was like a random season, so you could have started from point A and go all the way to Z with all that. And like, there was games on it. What else? You can make phone calls on that tablet. You had to pay for, but you had news. You could read the news if you paid for the subscription. So I was able.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I paid for the subscription. I was reading the news. I was like, "What the?"
You're paying for the privilege to see what is being said about you wrongly in the media.
Yes.
And I presume you didn't avoid your own story while you're in there.
Oh,
so,
no.
So you're paying to have access to the, call it arguable defamation. Some people will say it's outright, and other people will say it's nothing. You're reading this as you're on the inside.
Yeah, I read it, a couple of them, and I'm like, well, that's not true. They can't say that. And
even I think the day you were acquitted, I think it was the Independent or the Guardian that still reasserted that you were found not guilty of having shot, or I think they said shot or killed 3 black men at a BLM protest.
I believe that was the Guardian.
Was the Guardian? I've been following it, but I get lost between the misinformation from every one of the MSMs out there. And you'll tell me if you don't want to get too far into it. Just the night the incident happens, everything happens. What happens. You flee to safety. What is going through your mind like after that all happens? Is this like a nightmare where you? Some part of you is convincing yourself that this didn't just happen?
It was an absolute nightmare. My heart was pounding. My adrenaline was pumping. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I was terrified. I was just almost killed in the street, and I was scared. I was scared and didn't know what was going to happen.
All right, so now you're 3 months in pretrial detention. You finally get out after having raised, and then there's no shade on anybody here. 3 months in, you get the $2 million bond, which is you needed to put up the whole $2 million because it wasn't the 10% like under the bail system, from what I understand. Once that goes up and you get out, is it tasting freedom again, or is it experiencing a new type of terror now?
It was a little bit of a taste of freedom when I first got out. Not being restricted, not being shackled wherever you go. I remember it. So I remember getting bailed out. I remember them coming to get me and they're saying, hey, pack up your cell. I'm like, where are we going? At this point, I'm thinking I'm going to Kenosha Detention Center, which is the bigger facility that is not attached to the Corps. So I pack up my cell. They put me in handcuffs. They take me downstairs to the holding cell, and then they unhandcuff me, and then I sign some paperwork. And then they give me my property back and say change out, and they don't handcuff me again, and they put me in the back of a white van, drive me to the detention center where I meet security detail, and then...
Security detail as in your security detail?
Yeah.
So that now they're saying, we're here, here's security, and you're going to go into hiding effectively until you stand trial.
Yeah. And did that, drove like 4 hours from Kenosha to Indiana, and ate my first meal. I ate my first meal.
Where did you go?
Well, I had chicken nuggets, but then when I got back to the safe house, I had a steak.
On a barbecue, like grilled steak?
No.
Or you ordered from a restaurant?
It was from Outback.
Yeah, that's not a bad steak. Okay, they can make steaks. And what did it taste like? Best meal you've ever had?
It was pretty good, but I got really sick. I didn't know that eating like certain type, like I was on the jail diet, and I didn't know that can mess up your stomach, and like to not just go ham and eat a bunch of food that you haven't eaten in 3 months, especially red meat.
Yeah. Did you vomit?
I vomited. I was like curled up on the couch, and I was just like, I don't feel good.
It is. I forget what book it was that I read. It was one of the few books that I actually read with my eyes, but it was about prisoners being released from detention centers during times of war, and their bodies had gotten used to not decreased caloric intake, different bad diets, what's the word, malnutrition, and then you have to be brought back onto normal food.
I was
slowly.
140 pounds when I got bailed out. I went in weighing 200.
Okay, well, I say that's not a slim fast diet that anybody should ever get on. 60 pounds in 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the first thing you do is chow down on a very heavy, greasy meal, and it makes you not deathly, but seriously ill.
Yeah, like I was sick, and it was not fun.